From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast, Wednesday, January 29th, 2025. A packed show for all y'all today, including a look into DeepSeek AI and OpenAI and NVIDIA. Was IP stolen? Was DeepSeek able to do something off of ChatGPT and OpenAI's model? That is a question that's going to be haunting the OpenAI team here for quite some time as they investigate. Also, the energy and oil and gas industries have experienced an uptick in cybersecurity incidents. We'll discuss that on today's show as well, and some vulnerabilities and 0 days you really need to be paying attention to. So before we get started on this morning's show, a special shout out to our friends over at Nudge Security for their support of the show. You'll hear from them after our BeyondTrust story. So don't stay tuned, don't go anywhere, and please consider supporting the companies that support the show. Now, join me for a coffee cup cheers this morning. I got my double espresso, whatever you're drinking, let me know in the comments. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. So let's kick this off with the OpenAI and DeepSeek. So a lot of rumors in the Xverse and on Reddit and a whole lot of places. So I did what I do best. I took all of those rumors. I kind of looked at them holistically, and I said, what's real, what's not? And then I went through mainstream media. And the reason I go through mainstream media like the Wall Street Journal, they don't always get it right, but they definitely have an ear. I should know, in my last company, not the one I'm at now, Wall Street Journal was almost single-handedly responsible for the company going out of business. So I would know a little bit about the power of Wall Street Journal reporters. So OpenAI is now actively investigating the Chinese artificial intelligence startup DeepSeek and how it trained its new chatbot by querying the U.S. company's AI models. The company said Wednesday it has seen various attempts by China-based entities to exfiltrate large volume of data from its AI tools, likely to train their own models in a technical process called distillation. OpenAI said it has banned the accounts, but it's suspected of distilling its models and has worked with Microsoft, an OpenAI partner that hosts its models, to identify the actors behind those attempts. DeepSeek apparently is among those that OpenAI is looking into, according to people familiar with the matter. Now, Microsoft and OpenAI won't say more to that issue. I reached out to a friend of mine who I know who's got intimate knowledge of this world, and he said it's not far-fetched for Chinese to steal IP. He also said there was a lot of turnover at OpenAI early on, and so that turnover of those tools and then the publicity of the people leaving there could have been used to leverage those folks speaking to different media entities to gain information that may not be otherwise publicly available to people who are not associated with OpenAI. That's also something someone said, that this could be kind of a larger scale. And now you might say that's impossible, but China's in this for the long game. I've constantly said it on the show, and I'll say it again and again and again. China is the number one threat to global stability and to the capital and economic growth of the U.S. in general, right? So we know that DeepSeek is very much, everyone uses the Tiananmen Square example, but there's plenty of others where when you ask DeepSeek questions, it just doesn't give you an answer, or it gives you a propaganda-based answer that you would see in a communist indoctrination camp, right? Ask it about Uyghurs, and it says China doesn't have a Muslim population, which we all know to be false, because these Uyghurs are going through camps. They're being retrained. They're used as slave labor. And in many cases, they're not released, or if they are released, they're released under like strict conditions, and they're abused, and people are getting killed. I mean, all of this is happening in China, yet no one's talking about it. Yet, when you tune into the trusted news networks, and I say it with parentheses, you don't hear these stories. Ask yourself why, because the economic interest there. China has an economic interest in trying to weaken the AI model. It's part of a larger negotiation tactic and leverage that they're trying to assume over the incoming administration and its hawkish stance on China. And so they're trying to issue warning shots in order to gain leverage. President Trump announced with Larry Ellison and SoftBank and OpenAI Sam Altman, the 100 billion up to 500 billion investment in AI data centers. A week later, not even over the weekend, China fires off its opening shot, its opening salvo, DeepSeek AI. It's all interconnected, and if you don't believe so, then I urge you to like reach out, and I'll gladly, because I don't have enough time on today's show to do this, but I'll gladly give you the deep dive. Maybe I'll do a whole episode on it. This is all part of that. Cyber warfare, cybersecurity, data breaches, ransomware attacks, economic impact, all a greater part of a bigger, they're all a small piece in a bigger puzzle around economic dominance, IP theft, a corporate espionage, and so much more. And so that's what we're seeing here with this DeepSeek OpenAI and this investigation. And mind you, if this comes true, if this does happen, if this proves to be correct, let's say they did train off of OpenAI. Let's say they were able to acquire NVIDIA chips needed for this model, and they're not saying it because they don't want the party that bought those chips to essentially face the wrath of the DOJ for violating sanctions and executive orders issued by the previous administration on the security of these AI chips. Man, oh man, you're talking about a diplomatic mess, folks. Diplomatic mess. So something to keep in mind there. And something to definitely pay attention to. And for the love of all things sacred, do not use DeepSeek AI. Don't download the app. I know there's some people out there that are propagandists that are saying, no, if you use the web version and not the app version, then it doesn't. It all goes back to China. It all goes back to China. It all goes back to China. You're voluntarily giving company information or personal information to the Chinese. And if you do that, may God have mercy on your soul. A ransomware attack has kept a major energy industry contractor out of systems for nearly 6 weeks. ENGlobal revealed the extended disruption in an update to the SEC on Monday evening. The cybersecurity incident limited the company's ability to access portions of its business applications that supported aspects of the company's operation and corporate functions, including financial and operating reporting systems, for approximately 6 weeks. That's a really, really long time. Now, mind you, this was only their IT systems, not their OT systems. OT and IT in this world of energy are separated. I mean, there's not one firewall. There's not 5 firewalls. They rarely talk. And when they do, it's almost one-way communication, right? Almost a data diode of sorts. And so when you see a disruption of this type of operation, you're primarily talking about financial and operation reporting rather than actual power supply, because it's very, very hard to get into OT systems. But when you do, you can do a lot of damage. And also that's a whole different set. Like you blow up a transformer, you're talking about, potentially a declaration of war, right? These transformers are not cheap and they're not easily replaceable. You could be putting an area out of access to critical infrastructure like electricity for nearly 18 to 24 months. So just something to keep in mind there. As of date hereof, the company's operations and corporate functions have been restored. So that's just on Monday evening. They finally restored stuff that started on November 25th, right around Thanksgiving. Documents filed with the SEC in December notified regulators of a ransomware attack, warned that the attackers encrypted data files after gaining access to IT systems. ENGlobal designs and constructs automated control systems used by commercial companies and the federal government. They were founded in 1985 to do around $6 million in revenue last quarter and around $18 million in the first 9 months of the year. The company says it specializes in turnkey automation and instrumentation systems for the U.S. defense industry. No ransomware gang has ever taken credit for the attack, meaning specifically they may have paid the ransomware operators in order to shut it all up. BeyondTrust has determined that 17 of their customers, including the U.S. Treasury, were impacted by the remote support SaaS API key attack. The attack was attributed to the Chinese. BeyondTrust said it worked with the affected customers to support their respective investigation. They provided them with artifact logs, IOCs, and other information. The company said it shared that information with law enforcement as well. So we know 17 companies. And again, you think BeyondTrust, they've got hundreds and hundreds of customers. Why only 17? The Chinese operate in areas where they deem necessary. They're not going to go and cause a move it type of breach, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. They're not doing that. They're not going after 2,000 customers. They're very targeted. They're very specific. They looked at who they can get into. They went after strategic customers and strategic targets for China. They've and using this BeyondTrust exploit to do just that. Officials have not yet fully disclosed the full extent of the attack. However, former Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen admonished officials from the People's Republic of China over the recent cyber attacks against the Treasury and Treasury has taken action this week against the Shanghai-based action there as well, the Shanghai-based threat actor. We've done all of that there. And now, folks, a message from our friends over at Nudge Security. Hey, security gang, I'm so happy to welcome back Nudge Security to the show. And let's talk a little bit about identity risks, data security risks, and third-party risks, and what do they all have in common? They're made a whole lot worse by SaaS sprawl. Every new SaaS account adds a new identity to secure a new place where sensitive data could end up, and a new vendor risk management assessment you need to complete. Nudge Security addresses those risks at the source, helping you to protect and manage all of your apps, identities, and data anywhere and everywhere where it can happen. It all starts with discovery. Within minutes of starting your free trial, you'll have a full inventory of every SaaS account ever created by anyone in your org, along with insights into authentication methods, app-to-app integrations, vendor risk insights, and more. My team and I did this last summer. It was absolutely mind-boggling what we found. It helped us really kind of put a plan together and start a method of trying to automate security and governance tasks like detecting risks and misconfiguration. It helped us conduct user access reviews and help us offboard employees from specific apps that we didn't even know existed. It freed up our time for a lot more strategic work and vendor security profiles for every app, even Gen AI tools. It helped us do all of that, and it automated it, which I'm a big fan of. Nudge Security is graciously offering everyone a free 14-day trial by going to nudgesecurity.com/cyberhub. That's nudgesecurity.com/cyberhub. The link is in the show notes as well. Go get your free 14-day trial now. All right, so we'll continue with this Fortinet actively exploited zero-day authentication bypass that's affecting FortiOS and FortiProxy. Attackers have been exploiting this to gain super admin access to devices to conduct nefarious activities, including breaching some corporate networks. Fortinet has criticized the flaw as critical and tagged it with CVE 2024-555901. It's an authentication bypass using an alternate path or channel vulnerability. It would allow a remote attacker to gain super admin privileges via crafted request to Node.js WebSocket module, according to the FortiGuard Labs security advisory last week. Forti observed threat actors performing various malicious operations by exploiting the flaw, including creating an admin account on the device with a random username, creating a local user account on the device with a random username, creating a user group, or adding a local user to an existing SSL VPN user group, adding and or changing other settings, including firewall policy and or firewall address, and logging into the SSL VPN to get tunnel into some of the internal network, and then they would move laterally within there. So you want to make sure you get this patched up immediately. Some of the first signs came earlier this month when Arctic Wolf revealed that a zero-day flaw was likely to blame for a series of attacks on the FortiGate firewall devices with management interface exposed to the public internet. And again, just go and Shodan, and you can look this up, and you can gain immediate access. You can write the scripts, get the nodes, and do it. These are not high complexity attacks. They're not something that you can hide behind. Once it's there, and you want to make sure you address it. So please make sure you get these patched up. Rockwell Automation on Tuesday published 6 new security advisories informing customers about several critical and high severity vulnerabilities patched in its products. In the Factory Talk industrial automation software, Rockwell patched 1 critical and 1 high severity issue in the View Machine Edition and 2 high severity flaws in the View Site Edition. The Factory Talk View Machine Edition vulnerabilities can be exploited for arbitrary command execution. The critical bug can be leveraged remotely, while the high severity bug can be exploited only by a local attacker. So you want to make sure you get those addressed. In the Data Mosaic private cloud, Rockwell addressed a critical vulnerability introduced by the use of SQLite. The flaw was originally patched back in 2020 in a high severity path traversal that can lead to exposure of sensitive information. They've now resolved a denial of service vulnerability in the ICE2 controller and a credential exposure issue in the PowerFlex 755. One advisory describes CVE 2023-3825, a KEP server DOS vulnerability exploited by Clarity researchers at the ICS edition of the Pantheon 2023 hacking competition. So Rockwell is asking people to do just that. But now we move on to another energy provider. That's Centerpoint Energy telling that they are aware of reports that some customer data has been leaked after a researcher uncovered a cybercriminal forum post with that information. Centerpoint, for their end, say that based on their investigation, they believe the data was obtained from a third-party vendor system, likely attributing it to the MoveIt breach that happened back in 2023. In December, Nameless claimed to have acquired a database of information stolen from Centerpoint Energy. Researchers at databreach.com went through the data and found 3 million names and addresses. The company created a way for victims to look through the data set for their own information. The researchers say the data likely originated from Clear Result, an energy efficiency consulting firm managing programs for Centerpoint Energy, which utilized MoveIt software for that work. And again, it just shows you the challenges that exist there are third-party supply chain risks. It's all out there. The data becomes available, and a year or two later, when you think you've just breathed a sigh of relief, it just pops, right? It's never over. A vulnerability that exposed millions of airline customers to potential account takeovers has highlighted the risk from misconfigured OAuth authentication processes. And again, the implementation of OAuth, this is coming from folks over at Salt Security who were hunting for real-world examples of API supply chain attacks, stumbled upon a vulnerability in a travel company's process for authenticating users looking to access its service after making an initial airline booking. The flaw, which the travel services company has since fixed, basically gave attackers a way to redirect the user's OAuth credentials to a server of their choice. So think you're booking a ticket with an airline. And after you book your ticket, you scroll down, and at the end it says, rent a car, book a hotel room. Here's hotels next to it. The airlines aren't really selling it. They're leveraging a third-party platform to do just that. And the moment you do that, it's generating an OAuth authentication of your airline account to that travel site so the two match up, so you can get the points that you're supposed to get or the benefits or whatever you're supposed to get from booking through the airline's website, your hotel room or car rental or anything like that. That OAuth wasn't implemented correctly, which allowed that authentication token that an attacker could take and hijack it, then log back into your airline account and steal your points. And that's why MFA matters. That's why monitoring this stuff matters. That's why ensuring you've always got stuff, like you're monitoring those accounts, does matter. That's something to keep in mind there. That doesn't impact companies, that impacts individuals. And at the end of the day, we're all people. So that matters to every single one of us. And finally, academic researchers have now disclosed details of 2 new CPU side channel attacks that impact millions of people's phones, tablets, laptops, desktop computers, all made by Apple. The attack method was discovered by Georgia Tech and Rohr University Bochum. It's been named SLAP, so speculation via load address prediction, and FLOP, false load output predictions. The researchers demonstrated how an attacker can exploit a CPU vulnerabilities to obtain potentially sensitive information from the memory of a targeted user's Apple device by getting the victim to visit a malicious website. According to the researchers, the SLAP and FLOP attacks work against all MacBook laptops released since 2022, all Mac desktop devices since 2023, and all iPads and iPhones released since September of 2021. The SLAP attack was showcased on the Safari browser in a scenario that showed unprivileged remote attacker recovering email content and browser behavior from a targeted web page. The FLOP attack was demonstrated on Safari and Chrome, with researchers showing how a threat actor could obtain data like location history, calendar events, and even payment card information. So Security Week reached out to researchers to find out why Apple would believe the attacks don't pose an immediate risk, because Apple says this doesn't pose an immediate risk. Yeah, it's a cool concept, but it's not an immediate risk. And so they don't even have a deadline or a time to fix it. They're likely exploring it, but they're saying this is novel. This is people with a lot of time on their hands trying to do something jailbroken I often hear this from vendors. They'll say, what if someone could do this? Well, it takes a lot to do just that. And to understand risk as a practitioner, you have to go, what does that threat pose an immediate risk to my operations? And if it doesn't, then the answer is it's not an immediate risk. We don't see it being an immediate risk. Yes, it's unfortunate. We'll address it at some point, but this isn't something we're worried about right now. We have other priorities there as well. And so you'll often see researchers freak out and go, but if I could do it, so could the bad guys. Yes, but apparently the impact here isn't as big as maybe something else they're working on. That's the same that applies in every single business. So that's something to really keep in mind. That's it for our show this morning. I'm sorry we're a bit over time here. Thank you all for sticking it through. Please make sure to subscribe, follow, share, like, comment. Let me know if you've got any stories. You can always submit that. Go check out our website, cyberhubpodcast.com, for all the latest and greatest. Until then, have a great rest of your day. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, live. Until then, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.